Today, you will hear the confessions of Turntables and Tea. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cory.
And this week, we're going to be discussing Usher's classic 2004 album, Confessions. Perfect to do it right after the Super Bowl and his awesome halftime show, which was really confessions heavy. Even a couple of the non-singles were in there. So I had a feeling it would be. The album turns 20 this year. So
Yeah, and it was worth them getting that extra time. I was like,
oh yeah.
what's he gonna do with all that time? He filled it up correct. His special guests and the whole nine. It was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling he would. He has the hits and the clout to do it, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah, man.
And it's the best we can do because I cannot afford his concert tickets. So,
I heard that.
but that's beside the point. We're gonna go back to 2004, even though these songs are still hits today, as they should be, and talk Confessions. So, this was Usher's fourth studio album. He had two hit albums up to that point, and with major hits on them, chart topping classics. But there was the question of how will people actually connect to Usher the person? Like, rather, beyond him being a hit machine. That was the real question. But Usher also knew what had worked and didn't want to do new stuff. He wanted to work with the same people he'd been making hits with. So he worked with Jermaine Dupri again, who made hits for the past two albums. He got a variety of people here. We're going to discuss all of them track by track, of course. So it was pretty just, let's go, let's go. 40 songs were recorded for this album, but it still wasn't complete, apparently. And around all of this time, there was some turmoil in Usher's personal life. He had been in a long-term relationship with Chili Thomas of TLC, and they broke up in early 2004. And while that was possibly hard on Usher and Chili, but she said she implied that he cheated on her in a radio interview, but that only increased interest in the album with the turmoil in his personal life and fed into this Confessions narrative, even though we'll go track by track again, but not all of it was actually about Usher.
That's I'm not beef, but like that's my biggest back and forth with this whole thing because I respect I won't even use, I almost use the word gimmick, but I respect the concept of having someone ask you, like, relate to relate to the fans, relate to the listeners, tell them who you are. But then in the same breath, both him and Dupri are like, yeah, we got a bunch of the boys together and said, leave your egos at the door. And we wrote about everybody's life. I just go back and forth with it because it's like, if you're going to do an album about your confessions and be out there like, this is me to the people, and then as soon as it comes out, be like, oh, well, it wasn't me. it was a lot of people. It's tough for me there. I'm not saying that adds or takes away from the album. Just while diving in and reading about this, it seemed so contradictory of itself, of being like, yeah, it's all my confessions, and then like, well, it's not me. It's tough, especially when you're trying to really break it, or when I'm trying to really break it down, from a critical level, to figure out where these narratives are, how they fit together, who they're with. And yeah, it feels real hypocritical in a little bit of a way, because it's confessions, then it's like, yeah, but they're like sort of like made up confessions, or like a mix of me, Dupree, and the boys. It's tough for me on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the issue with that is, oh, the confessions make Usher look like a giant douche. So we gotta let the world know he's actually not that bad. And it's okay to like him, I feel like,
Yeah, well, that's where my problem comes in. Like, if you're gonna do it, own it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think if you own it, you 100% look real, or you are 100% real, and then you can really gauge how society or how your fans react to that. And that's the dice roll on this. For me, that's an awesome addition to this album. If it's 100% heart on my sleeve. You guys get it all the way. And of course, I'm nervous, just like I'm nervous per se in these narratives when I have to confess my wrongdoings inside of this relationship. I think that vulnerability for me in hindsight would have really given this album a lot more validity as far as being this true confessions album.
Yes, I see what you're saying there, but I also think that the album was so big that people were going to have questions about what he was saying anyway, and the truth would have had to come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
That's just kind of the thing. And also, we have to be realistic. We're in the world of pop music. There is always a certain wall up with how much we're going to share. I think in terms of pop music like this, a big mainstream release, which like this was.
No, I feel you. I feel you. You can't let them all the way in.
No, but they did. He did have some stuff to say, and there was already going to be anticipation over a new Usher album, and that was. I mean, it was an immediate success for the public. It sold over 1 million copies first week and ended up being the highest selling album of 2004 with 4 number one hits, and it's the second highest selling album of the 2000s. It's now sold over, oh yeah, no, it's sold over 15 million copies worldwide now, 14 times platinum in the US. So this is a true blockbuster album. I mean, I think a lot of the tea here really comes on individual songs. If there's not quite as much to say in the intro because so much of it is based on each track in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't want to beat a dead horse on that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there when we get there. But so as for me, I was 7 years old when this album came out. I really was not listening to top 40 radio at that point in time, being that young. I didn't really know all of these songs at first. For you in 2004, what was it like with this album out there? I'm curious.
Here's my confessions on this
Oh,
album. When we knew we were going to do this immediately, I know this album, and 100% honesty confession style on this, real confessions on this. Yeah, is one of my least favorite songs of all time. I hated on that song forever. I'll say more about it when we get to the track, but that marred a bit of this album for me back then. I've always 100% respected him as a vocalist, as a songwriter, as a performer. You know, if you've listened a long time or if you're just joining us, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan, and he always had the chutzpah and the talent that I saw in him. That I believe was inspired by MJ in many different ways. But yeah, we're talking 2004. That really marred this album for me. I listened to it probably a handful of times throughout when it originally came out. I loved some gems on here back then that I still love. And this was a cool challenge for me because, that being said, I had to wipe that out of my brain and say, let's go at this as a first time listener. And I picked up some tracks that I heard back in the day and wrote off in that mindset that I really enjoy, and I think are composed. Not think, I really enjoy. They're composed well, and he kills it no matter what. This is like a Mariah Carey type of thing, or like any of the artists that we get to when we're just doing one album of theirs, but they're just killers. I can say every single track, like, man, he killed it vocally, but that goes to without saying, I feel like, for somebody like Usher. So, but not getting too far ahead. Back in 2004, I was a bit of a hater on this album.
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, anything this successful is going to have its haters. That's
heard.
That's how it goes. I first read about it in my little Kids Almanac saying this is the top album of 2004. I thought, oh, well, it must be a pretty big deal then. I didn't.
You're good. When I told my wife that we were doing this, she was like, you're doing Confessions? And I was like, yeah, I know. It's going to be a cool challenge. And it was.
I mean, my Usher song that I really grew up with that I kind of remember being a hit was OMG, which was a few years after that. But I was in middle school and listening to pop music by then, current pop music, and keeping up with it. And then I heard some of these other songs just through the years since then. I haven't always considered myself like the diehard Usher fan, but of course, this he has so many hits that I have to say I'm a fan. The man's consistency is really just impressive through all these years. He's one of the top artists of my lifetime.
I'll never take anything away from him. I'll say that over and over again, you know.
Of course. But I was very happy to hear he'd be doing the halftime show. I'm shocked it took them this long because he's a great performer. He's got a really impressive catalog. And this was even floated around doing this a while ago, this album. It came up in conversations, but this is the perfect time to do it.
Most definitely. I going back on that, I'm surprised that he never got a halftime show up until this point.
I
Just
am too.
the showman that he is, I feel like it's a natural fit.
Yeah.
In his prime, you know, in his prime. I feel like it's a natural fit, but it was good to see him up there.
You know what? He's in better shape than I am, and he's 45, so I can't really.
Heard.
He's in more of a prime than I am, that's for sure. But I can't be mad at him. He's Usher. With that being said, I'm ready to go song by song, and we've got a lot of them here. So let's get it started.
Get at it.
Yeah, so we begin with an intro. I really don't have a lot to say about it. It just sets our tone well, I think.
Yeah, it's a nice intro and it lets us know what we're up for. Sometimes we get these intros that are off the wall. Even last week when we were talking about Boy Genius, it was a cool intro, but it set a tone in a different way. This is a straightforward, like, here's almost like a like the beginning to a long composition, you know, like this is everything in a snapshot. Here we go.
Yeah, this is representative of the album, even if the opening track really, the actual opening song really isn't. It is the aforementioned Yeah featuring Lil Jon and Ludacris. So, crazy story. This was not one of the first 40 songs Usher recorded for the album. Not at all.
Of course it wasn't.
No. This song came about because L.A. Reid actually said to Usher, "You do not have a single for the album," which is insane because he absolutely did have singles. That ended up being huge hits, but that was what he said. Usher really wanted the song Burn to be the first single, but L.A. Reid said no, it needs to jump out more. So he worked with a few folks. He did songs with Diddy, the Neptunes. Those songs didn't get released, which that's crazy too. How do you work with such big producers and not get released? That's how it goes sometimes. He did make a couple songs with Lil Jon, the king of crunk, and the #1 Stereo Gum column on this song points out that it's a bit of a red herring, even though the song has a narrative, because this is part of the emerging genre known as crunk and B. Very hip-hop flavored, very southern. Ludacris shows up to perform a guest verse, and the song still almost didn't come out, actually, because Lil Jon sent the beat for this song to Mystical, a rapper with a sordid history of his own. And his label, Jive Records, ended up giving it to Petey Pablo for his song Freak League. So, yeah, had to be reworked. The final track was sent to radio and mixtape DJs by Lil Jon, and there wasn't much of a choice for it to not be the first single because the song took off. And the rest is history. #1 hit in the US for 12 weeks, top single of 2004. Song hasn't disappeared since. When I watched the halftime show, my little cousin in 2nd grade knew the song, and she wasn't alive when it was born, so.
Deep breath. I'm going confession style on this, and I have to say I won't be this fired up and frisky the rest of the album, but I will say my piece on this song. Of course, it wasn't written for this album because it doesn't fit on this album. I'm going to try to do this without cursing too.
Yeah, just let it go. Just let it go.
It doesn't fit on the album. It's not for this album. I don't care how you want to listen to the narrative and be like, well, this, maybe this is when he was in the club, and maybe this is the where the adultery began. Get the F out of here with that. 2, this is a machine built single for the clubs. It's nothing but that. You got Ludacris coming in, and no disrespect to him, but let's be honest, he's going to come in and do his cookie cutter Ludacris shit. He's going to cut a verse, and then he's going to do a hook. I love the thought of Little John. I enjoy him, and I enjoy his presence. And I'm not taking anything away from him making tracks and doing his thing. But this is where the Chappelle jokes came from, or one of the places where the Chappelle jokes came from, of just him yelling, yeah, every couple of seconds. Yes, it was a movement. And this was, in my opinion, this is what the machine was like. Hey, if we want that to move, then we need to put it on this album, because if you release this track on anybody else's album, it doesn't fly like that. We're going to put Usher on it. We're going to put Ludacris. I'm yelling in the background. It's so contrived. I tried a million times to listen to this song with a clean slate and be like, all right, let's listen to it musically. Let's see where it hits. It hits on no level other than, for me, cookie cutter machine bullshit, and it shows. And not getting ahead of myself, but the intro is written to go into throwback. Why in the hell would you put this track on track 2? You could have put this track on track 18 on the original cut and ended with your pop hit, and it might have actually sort of worked. Regardless, it would have been on there and done. But if you're looking to build this narrative, this confessions narrative, this hearts on your sleeve narrative, why in the hell would you put this cookie cutter bullshit on track 2? It makes no sense.
It's not cookie cutter bullshit. It's one of the best.
I'm sorry. This is my opinion. This is my hot tea take.
It's not, though. It's one of the best party songs of all time, and it does not entirely fit the album, but this is one of those cases where we can forgive it. I think the song does have enough of a narrative to fit the album, and this song is undeniable. You can't not put it on an album. What was this going to be, a soundtrack single? No.
It could have been easy. I probably would have given it a fucking little bit of more of a time as a soundtrack. Well, in my opinion, it is exactly what a soundtrack single is. Well, I don't get me wrong, it's viral and everybody loves it for a million years, but that's I have to feel like that's not coming from its musicality. It's not coming from its composition.
No, it
strongness.
Is, though.
It's coming from a bunch of bullshit hooks. Make your booty go, get the fuck out of here.
But they're good hooks. They're professionals. They know what they're doing.
Like I said, I'm not taking anything away from anybody on the track, but it's bullshit.
They made a banger. And you're wrong. You're in the minority here.
I'm definitely in the minority on this one. But yeah, that's me. That's the hottest tea take maybe in the history of this podcast.
I think it is.
But definitely for today. I've let it all out. It's time to relax.
And it's already your least favorite song on the album, I'm guessing.
Easy. I don't even put it on this album. In all honesty, it don't fit. But yeah, I don't know if it's my least favorite track on this album, but it's definitely has a terrible place inside of my history. And I was always a hater on this song, and I tried my damnedest. But that is my ultimate conclusion, is maybe by itself, I'll give it a silver lining playbook here. By itself, yeah, rock it out at the club. But sure as hell not on this album. Especially when you're trying to do this whole thing and be, this is where I find it hypocritical of itself on this album in its own. I said that earlier. It's like, figure out what you want to be. You want to confess, you want to be real. I'm here for that.
But clubbing is reality when you're Usher. So...
Yeah, but the clubbing works in Bad Girl. The clubbing works later on in this album. This doesn't work here at all. It doesn't work later on in this album, except if it was the final track on an outro.
Okay, well...
Hottest tea takes, my bad.
Yeah, definitely. Folks, you're seeing it. You're hearing it now. Hottest tea take of all time. Okay. Don't know how we'll be able to top that, but in terms of hot tea takes. But we're gonna move on with the aforementioned song the intro actually goes into, which is Throwback, which was produced by Just Blaze. This samples a Dionne Warwick song called You're Gonna Need Me. Not a hit for her, but lesser known sample. Never, I don't think that's a bad thing to do, though, a lesser known sample.
Yeah.
And that song was written by the legendary Holland Dozier Holland songwriting team of Motown fame. If there's a Motown hit, there's like a 9 out of 10 chance that they wrote it or something like that. So, legends. But actually, Just Blaze did not intend this song for Usher. He produced it originally for Dr. Dre and his now unreleased album Detox, but that album didn't end up happening. It was not Dr. Dre's priority. So Usher wanted a more hip-hop track, so Just Blaze gave him this song, and they reworked it, of course, to fit the whole breakup narrative of that we're trying to go for with these confessions. Initially, on the original album, it was just a solo track. There was no rap verse. Jay-Z was called to do it. He couldn't do it. Then Jadakiss was called. He was not enthusiastic about it. But then Jadakiss admitted he slept on it and recorded a verse, and that version was included on the special edition, which is, that's interesting to me, to do a remix with a rapper and not release it as a single for a special edition. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. This was not a single, but it still did pretty well. But people know this song. It was on the Bubbling Under Billboard chart at number 14. I'm surprised there were only 5 singles from this album. This feels like a 7-8 singles album to me, but that wasn't happen. That didn't happen, but it didn't need to, I guess. So I don't think Jadakiss adds a ton to the song, but I think it's a cool track other than that. Very solid sample, solid vocals, of course. And it does, I think, it's an appropriate hip-hop track for this album.
Yeah, I think it hits on a lot of good levels here. You take that second track out and you put this right with that intro, it really fits well. Not only that, but the narrative of this track is a really cool start at the end kind of thing, where it almost gives us a look at what we're in for in this whole entire story. And I enjoy that. Jadakiss's verse, it's crazy. I can't forget the Jay-Z thing because I didn't know that. And it's crazy because right before Jadakiss's verse, there's a Jay-Z like, haha. And for not knowing Jadakiss was on this track at first, I expected it to be Jay-Z at that point, and then we get Jadakiss. For me, in my opinion, I can sort of feel what you were saying about Jadakiss not being 100% on board. Not necessarily like he phoned this one in, because I don't think he did. And you might be expecting, and maybe longtime listeners will be expecting for me to, run Jadakiss's name through the mud here, because that's usually how I feel about Jadakiss. But it's a solid verse. It's a little slow for me in his rapping style, what I'm used to from him, but it's still solid. It's not phoned in. It's just a tiny bit under tempo from what I expect him to do. It's definitely not one of his most difficult verses in his discography, but it's not terrible. It's not even that it's not terrible. It's a good track and it's a good verse. I enjoy this. I think this is a great opening for this album for all those points. I really do.
Oh, I did not expect you to go harder on Ludacris than Jadakiss.
This is like a first on so many levels. That might have been, here we go, true confessions all the way. That might have been the nicest thing I've ever said about Jadakiss.
I think it is.
I'm almost positive it is, because usually some expletives come out of my mouth as soon as you say Jadakiss.
Yep.
So there you go, Jada. I gave you the nicest compliment I will ever give you right here.
Okay. We hope you're listening, Jadakiss, please. But now, no featured artists for a bit now. We're on to our first a full Usher solo track, which was initially an interlude, but full track for the special edition, Confessions. This is a slow jam written by Usher, Jermaine Dupri, and Brian Michael Cox about how Usher went to LA to see a chick on the side with a crib and a ride. Yeah, Dupree and Cox weren't sure if it would make the album, but it did, and I'm glad it did. I think it's a beautifully layered track. The vocal production on this is insane all around. I mean, Usher is doing everything all over the place. And I mean, it's a really strong site. It's a strong title track, and it sets up an important story on this album.
Yeah, it does. It sets up a really important part of this album. I have a bit of a beef with the starting of this track because, and it goes along with this contradictory piece of you want to do confessions and then you say something out the other side of your mouth. And that for me, this song Confessions opens up with him or whoever is the lead in this narrative, but him as the singer being like, you love me unconditionally, right? Okay, say you'll stay with me. Okay, I'll tell you what I did wrong. Which for me is a whack way to confess anything. That's almost.
But it's real.
I mean, it is real. Unfortunately, that might be a real thing somebody says, but
that's absolutely
for me, I disagree with that. That aside, this is Usher, man. This is what he does well. This not what he does well, what he does great. There are really well done vocals on this that usher us, not no pun intended, but usher us into this album, usher us into his style, and really leave its mark. The beat for me, even though it is layered, and I'm with you there, it on its own, it's a bit of an unforgettable piece as far as just the beat itself. But that's me super nitpicking. This is I can't believe it didn't almost make it on the album because it's the freaking title track. But it is a really well done start to this story, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, well, they could have called the album Yeah.
Shit, and they might as well have.
If they'd removed it, but
oh my lord,
no.
I'll tell you.
But of course, there is more to it, and that is Confessions Part 2, the sequel song, which is more upbeat, but this has Usher impregnating the other woman in the narrative of the song. And of course, this was pretty controversial to hear. It's like, wait, what did you do? You're putting this on your album? And it was also a single. It was considering the subject matter, a bit of a bizarre choice, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense because it's very catchy. It does have a good beat, and it's hard to forget this song. That's what makes it stand out. But with that controversy, it had to be clarified that Usher is not, this did not actually happen to Usher. He did not impregnate a woman on the side. Instead, Jermaine Dupri did. He wrote this about his life, which, okay, that doesn't make him sound too great, but I guess he wasn't singing the song, so it's not as big of a deal. I think this is probably the main song you're talking about in terms of the hypocrisy. However, the song is so well done that I'm able to forgive that. And Usher wanted to do the song. Dupri wrote it in half an hour and wasn't even sure if Usher would be about something like this, but he was. He wanted to show a different side of him as an artist, and he did it and continued his reign. He replaced himself at the top of the charts with this song and even did it at the halftime show, which, okay, maybe not the best choice for the family event, but who cares? I don't. Dupri actually said that in terms of this being a single and not part one, he said that L.A. Reid had a Star Wars mentality when it came to choosing singles. So,
like he wanted a trilogy, or
well, no, like he thought. I was thinking like it's okay to release one part before a trilogy kind of.
That makes sense. Okay, I see.
This was in the middle of the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, so that's what I think he was referring to.
I can see that Confessions 2 as a single, even though it's not the start of the story. That's a cool quote. I can relate to that. Oh man, as far as the song though, warms up a little bit tempo wise here. I dig it. It's definitely catchier than the beat before. The beat, in fact, for me, and I don't, this isn't really even a hot tea take, but there are pieces of Bone Thugs and Harmony First of the Month here for me.
Yeah.
It's got some socially relatable, powerful questions. I ask myself, could Confessions and Confessions 2 been done as one song if they used this beat? And I have to say no. I'm glad they were done separately. And the contradiction aside, inside of it being a Confessions album, or whose confession it was, I'm with you. It doesn't really matter here as far as the narrative is still intact and the album is intact pacing wise, where we get just a little spice added on to the last confession, and we up the stakes, but with that we up the stakes of the composition itself. So it fits well. I enjoy this one.
Good. Glad to hear it. I would have really been mad if you hated this song. But the hits continue, actually, with the preceding single, in this case, which was Burn, the one they wanted to be the lead single. And makes sense. This is another Dupree and Cox track, and Dupree set out to make a hit with this. He wanted to make a song like You Got It Bad, which was #1 hit off the previous album, and he even compared it to Michael Jackson's She's Out of My Life in terms of what it was conveying, which, I mean, musically, I don't think it sounds like that song at all, but I kind of saw what he was saying in terms of it just being like somebody's crying. But it did manage to play into Usher's breakup with Chili, intentionally or not. But it's also a piece of machine pop craftsmanship, let's be real here. But it's damn good machine pop songwriting and production. Dupree's a great producer. He knows what he's doing in the studio, I believe. He was one of the go-to guys during this era for a reason. And it does convey that emotion, even if the song wasn't about Usher and Chili. Usher, I think, with his vocals, was able to make it that, and showed his vulnerability in the song. And it's so funny, there was all this back and forth about Burn being the lead single. Second single, it replaced Yeah at the top of the charts, and it topped the charts for 8 weeks, and they were almost all straight weeks. He did 7 weeks, and Usher was replaced at the top of the charts for 1 week by Fantasia's American Idol winning single, I Believe, and then came back and was replaced by Confessions Part 2. So he almost had an over 20-week streak at #1 if it weren't for American Idol, which that's insane.
Yeah, super insane. Not so much insane when you actually listen to this track, because
Yeah.
his voice is amazing on it. That goes without saying. I've already said that, but I really love the falsetto pieces we get early on in this track. It's great. You say machine, and I'm going to get to that point, but not in a negative takeaway here. It's really well done. I never will take anything away from Jermaine Dupri, regardless of how I feel about him. Their talent is talent, and he has talent, and he does a great job here. I believe it was him that I read said that this song, the way R. Kelly did it, you can feel, or he feels almost like you hear someone crying. And
Did you say
I'm with
R.
him.
Kelly?
I said R. Kelly. Well, that's because I'm getting to my point. I meant Usher. You feel like someone's crying, and I dig that, and I can feel that. This is a really well done. This is at this point in the album, this is my favorite track on the album. And I really enjoy this one. Now, I have a hot tea take. Maybe it's just maybe I'm the only one. I don't know if this is out there on the internet, but this beat is very eerily, in my opinion, a bite off of R. Kelly's Ignition. And that's the only piece of this that takes away a little bit on it. Ignition, not so much Ignition remix, but there's
part
that
one.
feeling. Yeah, there's that feeling here.
Okay.
That really is almost like a bite off that. And that's why I said R. Kelly before, because I had to keep that one in my head. But that's maybe not even such a hot tea take as just one of my crazy observations on this musically. But this is a really great track, all in all.
I mean, it's very possible, certainly. They're both, I mean, that song came out just a year before this, but I was so confused at first. But you don't mean the remix that was a big hit, it does
No,
not sound like that. But
no.
okay. Well, anyway, yes, I'm glad we both agree this was a deserved hit.
Yeah.
Definitely was. And now we're on to another hit. They put the hits in a row here. I will give them that. But let's just hope that it means after this point the album stacks up to these hits. But we're still in that mode with track 7, which is Caught Up. This was produced by Dre and Vidal. And Usher didn't write the song. The only intention here was making an upbeat dance tune. And I mean, it worked. This is just a great pop song. It's got a great beat, great chorus. It was the 5th and final single, peaked at number 8 on the Hot 100. Somehow the least successful single here, still a top 10 hit. I mean, here's how you know this is a banger. The first time I heard this song was definitely on a Kids Bop commercial. I never owned any of those CDs, but it was on one of those commercials. And it's a testament to this song's catchiness that I remembered it, because obviously, I mean, come on, it's Kids Bop. But better they did this song than Burn, which they did a cover of too, which that's just bizarre to me. At least they didn't do Confessions Part 2, but that would have been off the wall.
Yeah, man. It is a banger. It is a banger. The hook in this is the earwig, almost as earwig as you get on this album, outside of Yeah. I love it. I love this hook. I love the way the melody of the hook goes. I like this composition all in all. This composition doesn't stop from start to finish. We bring it up again here, which I love. The way the beat starts off with the vocal harmony and the bass really working in tandem is another thing that I really love about this track. It is a banger. It is a banger. It's right in the middle here. It's my track 7, which is always a positive for me. But you're right. We're getting the meat of this sandwich, and I'm talking first time listener. We got our intros and we got the actual confessions, and we're really getting hits here. So hopefully this sandwich has a good piece of bread on the top of it, or the bottom of it, which way you want to look at the sandwich. We're definitely at the meat of this album right now.
Yeah, definitely. But it's funny you say halfway through. We're actually only a third of the way through.
True.
In the case of this one, but I can only imagine, like, if I were, say, my age now, picking this album up on release day and hearing this for the first time and knowing I was hearing a future hit, because this had to be undeniable the first time hearing it.
Out of all of the chart toppers here, this one, I don't know, maybe just because I enjoyed it so much back then, but this one always stuck with me as the real banger on this album, as the real radio play one on this album.
We'll get to its delayed release as a single later on, but before we do that, can't believe I forgot to say this earlier. Please follow us wherever you're listening to us, whether that be Apple or Spotify or Amazon, even YouTube, which we're on now. And also leave us a nice rating and review, and follow us on social media. Those links are in the description. All right, we're truly in the meat of the album, the middle portion here. And that begins with the Superstar interlude, which is a little more than a minute long. This really just serves to move us to the next track, which I can kind of see why, because we are shifting gears at this point in the album. Other than that, I don't think it's essential to listen to on its own. It is cool that it has a crowd chanting Usher at the end, but it's not the most important piece of the album. It's a transition.
Yeah, if it was on the front of Superstar, though, I think Superstar might play too long. I can understand where you did it, and you're right. It is that transition. We changed gears, and without it, it would be a tad bit abrupt. But yeah, it's a cool little change, though. I enjoy it, and I like I'm with you. I like the crowd chants, because it really ups the level for when Superstar hits, in my opinion, as well.
Most definitely. And then Superstar does hit. This is another Dre and Vidal production, and it samples a track called Max Stroll, The Getaway by Willie Hutch. This track is, I knew it would be from a soundtrack based on the title, and it is. It's from the 1973 blaxploitation film The Mac, which starred Max Julien and Richard Pryor. So one of them I've heard quite a bit about, the other not quite as much, but that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah, this song does use the groupie as lover metaphor, which we've heard that in a song called Superstar before, which is kind of a standard at this point. The most well-known recording by the Carpenters, but it's been done by tons of people. But this is not a straight cover, and I'm glad that it's not. It's a pretty beloved deep track. A bit of it was actually played at the halftime show. I was like, oh, is he doing Superstar? Damn, I was not expecting that. I am not quite as up on this song as other people. I think it's fine. I think it serves a purpose, but I just think that it's surrounded by much stronger songs. I mean, we're coming off the heels of Burn and Caught Up, and then we have Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis doing songs right after this. I think this actually gets a bit, for me as a listener, lost in the shuffle. It doesn't stand out quite as much as it needs to, I don't think.
I actually am with you there. I jam on this song, but you're right. It does get lost in the mix here a little bit. I think it was Pitchfork that I was reading. I don't want to misquote, but long story short, I had read out there that even, the tracks that aren't the chart toppers on this are not really cutting room floor necessarily, more so of like little gems that you go back and you get. And I think this is one of those. This is definitely one of the ones that I was talking about earlier on in the podcast, where I said, coming back to this album and critically listening to it, I picked up a few that I enjoyed, and it stands out to me with that old school feel in the background, with the sample, and it really has a swagger because of that for me, and I like that. That just that funky guitar sample in the track really sets a neat tone here. A laid back a laid back swaggerific tone here, and I dig that. Unfortunately, yeah, it gets a little bit lost in the mix here, but musically it's really well done.
Most definitely. I mean, it's all very top of the line production wise. No taking away from that. But as I said before, I'm excited. Our next song is Truth Hurts, which is the first of 4 consecutive tracks produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who had worked with Usher on the previous album, most notably producing the hit You Remind Me.
Yeah.
But I mean, perfect producer choices for this album. I think if we're going to go with this Confessions concept, because these are the guys that did the Velvet Rope, for Christ's sake. So
Heard that.
If you haven't listened to our episode on that, please do, by the way. That one's a banger, if I do say so myself, in terms of our catalog. Again, I mean, I think the title kind of sums up, it's an appropriate song title for an album called Confessions, Truth Hurts. And I like that this song does switch perspective, and now Usher's the one being cheated on in his narrator role. And the confessions go all around. And I think that's an important point to illustrate here. He's definitely a man of many hats, I think is something that might not be understood at first when you're listening to it. It's not just about him and Chili. There's a lot of layers here. And I think that's something you get more so on repeated listens of this. But is this the best song on the album? Not even close. It's no Confessions Part 1 or 2, but I do enjoy it. And again, Jam and Lewis know their stuff. So it's very well done and pleasant to listen to.
Yeah, it really is well done. And you don't necessarily feel this disconnect, or I don't feel this disconnect from the Dupree tracks to the Jam tracks. It really is well done. And musically, this is a very solid track. The back and forth of Truth Hurts, as far as the back and forth of the vocal of, when they're like Truth Hurts at the end of each one, I really dig that. There's a part towards the end of this song where he outright kills it vocally. I mean, he is, again and again, I'll say it, he's a master of his craft, and this one shows it. It's a good one. It's a good song. Just musically, it is almost top notch. It's really well done. But that's what I expect from producers of that caliber and himself,
Most definitely. And we're going to keep that going with the 11th song, which is Simple Things. which is a song based on the concept that money can't buy you love. I feel like that's a pretty familiar song trope. And initially I wasn't throughout this week, I wasn't super excited about this song. I felt like this is kind of just real cookie cutter concept and filler, but the more I listened to it this week, the more it grew on me. This one just, I would find it stuck in my head randomly. It's like, damn it, Jammin' Lewis, there you go with your tricks. You know how to sink into me. Honestly, the brilliance of this, I'll say it, is that it's an elegant sounding song, which these guys know how to do, but yet it's about how the simple things are important. I'm like, that juxtaposition, that's very smart. It seems very obvious, like in hindsight, but to make it work in this soundscape, I think is really impressive, not easy to do. And they did it. And now this is definitely was the big grower of the album for me.
Yeah, this is another one where I came back and fell in love with. I'm with you on that. I not only do I jam on this song, but I really think it's integral for this album, so it's not super misogynistic and
Yes.
and putting that ahead, because this is like, hey man, these are the simple things. These are really listening to the lady, listening to your partner regardless, and relishing those things and being able to enjoy them and to really not even just focus on, but really be able to see them, period. It's such a very well handled song, and they, in my opinion, they meticulously handled this, and it is put in the perfect place on this album. And it says, for me at least, the most perfect thing you can say here, because it really does it for me, it balances the misogynistic tones of this album to a T. So I really jam this. I like this. I like the premise. I like the concept. I like the production. It's a whole package here. This is up there for song of the album for me. And I say that with all respect to the other tracks that are diamonds, gems on this, but this one's up there, man.
Yeah, it's a real good one. A simple thing is a diamond in this case.
I heard that.
So,
Heard that.
but we are going to. It's good you mentioned this album's not too misogynistic because of a song like that. Because well, we're going to go a different direction up next with Bad Girl. So yeah, this is the most well-known non-single on the album, another Jammin' Lewis joint. And it has almost as many Spotify streams as Caught Up, and he did it at the Super Bowl, and it deserves all of that. This should have been the sixth single. This is just a great, horny funk rock track. It's a sound we haven't really heard yet here, and I mean, this is very Prince influenced, and I really think that was a good thing to do at this point in time, because by 2004, Prince was not making horny songs anymore. He was in his Jehovah's Witness era. So somebody had to do it. And Usher definitely did it with the right people. And this is a 10 out of 10 track. That's all I can say.
I'm with you. I don't know if I have it on the perfect level, but I'm very close. Maybe a 9.5. It's almost there for me. I love the back and forth with the guitar on the start of this track. It automatically feels dirty, almost, I'll say racy, almost dirty immediately. The way he uses that falsetto type vocal at the beginning to really make it feel sexy, I enjoy. I was with you. I had Prince in the notes here. I also have Dirty Diana in the notes here. It's that kind of song that just hits like that. It's cool. It's we talk about juxtaposition all the time. This right after Simple Things is a really cool juxtaposition for me, and I really enjoy this. This is a neat contrast that again is another needed piece, I feel like, inside of this album. And it definitely is jamming. I haven't talked much about pacing, but it really goes without saying that this, especially with all the producers involved, that this album is almost perfectly paced, if not perfectly paced.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's that's not an easy task to do, especially in this era. The 2000s are a lot of multi-producer albums. We've seen that just on this show, but this is definitely one of the more cohesive ones that you'll hear.
Agreed.
For sure. Then again, we are in a producer suite that sadly ends with the next song, but I think it ends on a good note with That's What It's Made For. This is just a steamy love song here. This one, it's like Marvin Gaye meets Philly Soul for me, this song. And it has that classic sound, yet it still is contemporary. I just don't have much to say other than that. I love this song, and I think everyone should listen to it because it's got such a classical soul feel to it. And I feel like this is Marvin Gaye 2004. I'll say it.
I can feel you on the Marvin Gaye thing. This one isn't my ultimate favorite. I'm not saying it's gun to the head at all, but it does. It has that kind of feel to it, and it's enjoyable if just for that. There's not really much to say here from me. Musically, it doesn't fall flat, but it doesn't blow me away. I agree. It's a nice way on the way out for this production suite here. It's not a bad song in any rights. I'm with you. It's definitely one to listen to. It's a good song. It definitely is.
It's one that, for me, it grew on me. I liked it first listen, but I liked it more and more as I listened to the album.
Heard that.
Definitely one of those songs for me. But that suite ends. We're on to a new producer now with track number 14, which is Can You Handle It? This was written and produced by Robin Thicke and Proj. I'm afraid this is my gun to the head least favorite here. A big part of that is because of the length of the song. It's almost 6 minutes long. Doesn't need to be. And I just feel like it's a Robin Thicke song. I feel like he wrote it for himself, decided not to use it, gave it to Usher. They were friends at the time. I'm not sure if they still are, but I don't get a sense of collaboration on this. The female vocalist on the song is actually Paula Patton, who was Thicke's eventual wife, but now ex-wife. And I promise you, some of the things that have been said about that marriage are not good. I'm not going to get into them here. I promise that knowledge is not impacting my judgment of the song. And even though, yeah, Robin Thicke put out a whole album called Paula to try to get her back, which is weird as fuck, but so it doesn't impact the song. It's just not my favorite, not my jam.
I don't know, man. I have to disagree only on the, and I know I keep saying this, but the caliber of his vocals, man, he is a freaking gymnast on this track as far as his vocal prowess goes. I mean, he goes all the way from some slow soul glow style, like from back in Coming to America falsetto, all the way down to some almost baritone flashes. And I dig that a lot in this one. Again, it's not any way my top song on the album, but this one I didn't feel that it went on too long. I enjoy this one. This is one of the ones where I say I came back to this album and found some new tracks that I enjoyed, and this is one of them, but more so for the prowess of his vocal gymnastics here. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, but he sounds good on all the songs, so
yeah, but listen to, for me, the range on this one is I'm gonna say the biggest range he has on the album, because you don't hear him do those hardcore baritone flashes a lot, and he sticks them all the way through this.
Okay, okay, I disagree with you on that one. That's for damn sure. I would say that's another hot tea take. You like this song more than that's a hot tea take.
Again, it doesn't exist, but
okay. All right, but now we're going to move on back to the land of Dupree and Cox with "Do It to Me." It's a Dupree and Cox slow jam. This is a serviceable slow jam. That's all it is for me. I feel like this kind of song is done by every R&B singer ever. And I don't think that this one is special. And I think it feels a little out of place on the album, actually, because there is no emotional honesty to it like we get on the best tracks here. There's none of it. Yeah, it's another filler. This was also a contender for least favorite for me. I could definitely do without it.
I'm with you on that. I think this one shows the caliber of producer that Jimmy Jam and them can sit on that for a second and know how to handle a racy song. And then you get here, and in vocals and everything, this song is overtly just way over the top. It's trying to be dirty, and even musically it falls short because of that. The way that the reverb slash a little bit of echo that they have on the bass drum here. This bass drum for me musically is supposed to represent this hardcore heartbeat in this sensual tone that they're trying to set inside of this composition, and it's just way overdone. Now there's echo and reverb on the rest of the pieces here, and I think that fits inside of the composition, but the bass drum takes me all the way out of it. It's unfortunately it is just a huge miss. I'm with you on it. Almost feels out of it does not almost it feels out of place here because everything else has been handled so meticulously and so well and with these beautiful white gloves on, and then we get here and it's a mess. It really is. It's a mess of a track for me.
Yeah, not sure why this one wasn't left on the cutting room floor at all.
Yeah, out of 40 tracks, that's tough, man, you know.
Very confused by that, but fortunately that's over and we're on to track 16, which is Take Your Hand. This song was produced by Rich Harrison. He was known for incorporating a sound called go-go into his songs, which is really horn and percussion heavy. And this song samples a track called Is There a Place for Me by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. So Harrison is going more for Philly soul in this case than go-go. I like the static in it and the vintage vibe of it. It's not quite what I expect from a Rich Harrison track. And I mean, this is the man that produced Crazy in Love. This is not that. And I do think that a song along the lines of A Crazy in Love would have been out of place on this album. So I can see why he went in a different direction. But I think it's fine for what it is. It's just not quite what I expected. And I do wish the song was a bit more dynamic, I guess.
I think for the first time on this album, like hardcore, that we're on the opposite side. This for me is a single. This should have been a single. I can, if I had to retract one thing or take away one thing on this track, I'm sorry, it would be just the vinyl sound. The vinyl crackle doesn't need to be here because this song is so tight. I mean, this is a funkalicious jam here. I'm going to go as far as to say that this has some old school James Brown tones throughout for me, and I dig it. But yeah, I mean, that funky bass line in there, this track is funkalicious. Again, I got this up for missed opportunity single all the way here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was not quite.
Yeah, nah, I jammed on this back in the day, but I was happy to hear this song again.
Wow. But actually, so it's speaking of singles, there is an interesting little tidbit about Usher's collaboration with Mr. Harrison. So one of the unreleased songs from Confessions was a track called Ride, which was a bit closer to the more upbeat Rich Harrison songs with the go-go sounds. And it was left on the cutting room floor. Funny story, year later, Harrison reworked the song for Jennifer Lopez and it became Get Right. And but of course there was tea. Usher did not know that he did that and demanded publishing for Get Right, and he did. He has a songwriting credit on that tune.
Well, good for him. If it was already recorded, even if it was cutting room, that's bad form.
Yeah. But that's wild to me that like one of the songs left on the cutting room floor of this album ended up in reworked form becoming a hit for another artist.
Yeah, it's wild to think, especially with those producers or the amount of songs and the amount of producers on here. I bet you there was a couple more tracks we don't even know of that had some hurt feelings on them where they wanted to pick them up and use them because they really believed in them. Regardless of that, that's part of the game, Bill. You can't do that. That good for Usher getting right, credits on that because that is bad form.
Well, yeah, because Harrison tried to snake him, but unfortunately that's par for the course when you worked with Jennifer Lopez back in the early 2000s. So
don't be talking about Jenny from the block like that.
I have mad respect for J-Lo, but she stole songs.
Oh. Heard that.
No, actually, she only got Get Right because she wanted to record One Thing by A. Marie, and the label was trying to help her do that, but Harrison and A. Marie leaked One Thing so it could be an A. Marie track. And as a compromise, she got Get Right.
The dirty world. The dirty
It's
world.
a dirty world.
J-Lo gets what she wants, baby.
She does. She does.
She does. She got Ben Affleck twice.
Yep. And put out an album about it again. But yes, but now we are on to our final track of the standard edition. I'm glad it's not of the whole album, actually, which is Follow Me, a Dre and Vidal track. Again, this is just a filler song. I can't believe this is an album closer. This is just weak for an album closer. And even just as a song, there's so many better songs here. It's not horrible. I don't feel like I must skip it if I'm playing this all the way through, but nothing special about it to me either. And these are the guys that gave him Caught Up. Really? This ain't it, man. This ain't it.
Yeah, it's got maybe if I'm silver lining playbooking it here, it has enough power in a composition, like enough bang for you, not even bang for your buck. I don't know. I'm trying to give it some kind of silver lining here. It doesn't make sense, man. It seems so. I hate to beat down the word contrived so many times here, but it just starts off with the bump, 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 like cookie cutter end note. It's such a powerful album in so many different ways, and this is the original ender. It was tough for me to believe. I even asked you before we came in here, are the 18 through 21, are they all the extra tracks? And you said yeah, and man, damn, they ended on this. It's a wild choice. As many production triumphs we've had in this, that decision for me was a little bit tough. It's not a bad song, it's not a
closer.
No, but it's not a closer. No,
but as we said, this album was re-released in the fall of 2004 because there were just some more songs to do. Well, in particular, the next track, which is the reason a special edition was released in the first place, because they knew the album just was not complete without My Boo. So Usher wrote this song with Dupree, Manuel Seal, and Adonis, all big hit writers, and it just wasn't done in time for the release of Confessions in the spring, which is crazy, but that's how it goes. And it was believed to have been envisioned as a duet with Beyonce, and the demo leaked of this with a Beyonce sound-alike singer named Courtney Casey Leveringson, but the song did not end up being with Beyonce in its final form. I don't know why that didn't happen, but it didn't. However, we got Alicia Keys instead, who was on the same level musically in terms of popularity, at least, as Beyonce in 2004. They were the R&B it girls who crossed over to pop, and this might be a hot tea take. I think 2003, 2004, Alicia Keys was the better artist than Beyonce. I'll say that now. I mean, come on, The Diary of Alicia Keys, that's a classic album right there.
That might be a hot tea take for our listeners, but I'm with you on that.
I know you're with me, but for the listener, it might be. Don't come for me, Beehive, please. If you're listening. So Jermaine Dupri and Manuel Seal are credited as the producers, and they had Ghost's help from No ID. And this song samples He's All I've Got, which is a 1977 track from Barry White's Protege's Love Unlimited. I mean, I think that sample works really well because this is a song about like childhood friends to lovers kind of thing. And it's important to have a nostalgic sounding sample for that. In terms of re-releasing the album for this song, that was a brilliant commercial move because this was a #1 hit for 6 weeks. There was you put two huge artists together, there's automatically massive anticipation, but the song itself had legs, and we were reminded of its brilliance when Alicia Keys showed up at the Super Bowl to perform it with him. I know some people in our comments were mad that he grabbed her like that, but folks, it's just a show. Calm down.
I'll tell you right now, I said I wasn't going to get as worked up as, but I might right here. That's the fucking closer for this album. I cannot believe you. I don't care what schedules you had to work around. You make that happen and you've closed this album with it. It would have been the perfect ribbon on this album. It would have again balanced out the misogyny a bit. And I mean, you got my girl on it. You got my boo, my actual multiverse boo, my multiverse choice up there for baby mama, with the powerful voice that's going to rock and finish off this album. I'm so glad we got this. I'm so glad this came to life. I'm so glad this wasn't a cutting room floor one that we never heard. She kills it on this. He kills it on this. They kill it together. And I was so happy to see this at the Super Bowl halftime, not just for her, but just because this is a great song. Again, this is my closer. This is my closer for the album. Good night. Drop the mic on that one. Not me dropping the mic, but them. It's such a great track.
Yeah, there's no denying this one. And it may have been the highlight of the halftime performance, seeing these two icons do this song together, and right before that, do If I Ain't Got You. I mean, just greatness all around. But it's actually not the closing track here. We have 3 more to go. And are they essential additions? Let's determine it one by one. And we're going to start that with Red Light, another Lil Jon production with many writers, one of which was Carrie Hilson, actually, before she made hits of her own. The backbeat of this is a siren, which does sound actually really obnoxious, but it works for me. I love this song. This was left off, possibly. This is a banger, and it does have a narrative to it. It's Usher. He's having a one-night stand with an old flame, but of course it brings up all kinds of feelings. That's perfect fodder for Confessions. This is the most underrated song on this entire album, one of the least streamed. I don't like that. TikTok, do your thing and make Red Light a hit. This is a banger. I would go off if I heard this in public.
I'll start off with they couldn't have fit this on the album. I will agree with you that there is a narrative in here that could have fit, but the way this track goes, it would have crushed any pacing. I don't care where you put it on this album. It's way too loud in composition for this album. It's not like a good contrast for his softer stuff. It's out there. It's out there. For me, this track is doo-doo. I'm sorry, man. This track is doo-doo. We get into personal preferences here. It's so, oh man, it's just so it's crap.
No.
And I don't mean that like, I do mean it. I mean it musically. I like it is some Fisher Price, my first beat maker bullshit. And it definitely didn't have a place on this album. I don't know. It's way too crass of a beat and a composition for, maybe that's how I should say it. It's way too crass. That siren, the whole 9 is way too crass of a composition for me, especially in this package. And I'm judging it inside of this package, but yeah, I'm not with this one at all. Oh man, it's a very rare moment when we have such wild conflicting viewpoints. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, maybe in a inebriated club setting, I might step foot out for this, but I don't know, man. This is the stuff I don't get down with. This one, I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I keep saying I don't know because I hate being so negative. I try not to hit this point really ever, but this is doo-doo, dog.
Nah. Nah. I liked Lil Jon a lot more than you did today, that's for sure.
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to Lil Jon on that. I'm just judging off this stuff, bud, but whew.
Lil Jon, you made a banger. Don't listen to him.
Heard that.
But, we are going to move on back to slow jam territory. The title gives it away with Seduction. This is another Jam and Lewis track, and well, I'll say it's a much better bedroom song than Do It To Me. I do think it is a bit clunky lyrically, like at times just a bit too on the nose. Like to say straight up erotic, we don't need that here, but it does have more of a groove to it than the other slow jam, and but it's not an overpowering groove. I do think in the musicality of it, I do think it's both funky and sensual, and that's what Jam and Lewis do well. So on that level, I do enjoy this song, though I think it could have used some more editing in the lyrics.
Yeah, you polish this up, man. This is a perfect, in my opinion, this is a perfect one to put in for Do It To Me. You polish this up. It's a tad bit clunky, but I think that's because it was cutting room, and they put it up here because it was solid. But as far as fantasy playlist or fantasy track listing on the original cut, this sticks in for Do It To Me. I feel like the pacing's there. I feel like the feeling's there. It automatically has an Usher type feel to it inside of the composition. As far as the beat goes, yeah, I this one I think could have been on the album.
I agree. I think it should have replaced Do It To Me as well. Even in the form it is. Could have used polishing, but even in this form, it should have.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm with you.
But now, wow, we've come to the end of this now. Our closer, and it's Confessions Part 2 Remix. So
we're spilling hot tea today, so let's end off with it. I think this is gonna be another hottie, but let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something I know I don't want to say about this song.
Then don't. Then
no,
don't even put him in the mix, other than what musically is here.
Yeah, okay, we'll get there. So yeah, this remix, it has the same beat for the most part as the original. But it does have some different lyrics, and that's mostly because there are 3 guest rappers on the track. The first of them is Shine, who recorded his verse over a prison phone because he was in jail for attempted murder at this point in time, but he was released. He's now a politician in Belize, so good for you, Shine. I mean, I've never heard a prison phone verse on a song before this one, so that's pretty unique in and of itself. And then we get Twista with his signature speed rapping, which I always find enjoyable. I think he's an underrated rapper in the scheme of things. And we get Kanye West when he was an up-and-comer.
There you go.
This was the year his first album was released.
There you go.
I regret this is the thing I didn't want to say. He has the best verse on the song.
Damn right he does. I'm happy you said that. I thought you were going the other way because I know your feelings on Kanye, but damn right he does. That verse fucking kills.
Yeah, it was before a lot of things. It was before a lot of things.
Heard that.
But do not, but still, I'll say it again. Fuck Kanye. I still have to say it.
Heard.
But I'll say it's a good verse. And it is the best on this song. And I already like Confessions Part 2 as it is. So of course I enjoy the remix too. Yeah.
Do you think this was cutting room floor? Do you think this was done for the re-release or for the special release?
I'm under the impression it was done at the time of the single, and it was added to the album as a special, as a bonus track because the remix on its own got some rotation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it could take the part of Confessions too. I'm not even gonna put them together like that. This track hits, man. It's cool. It's a great remix. Everybody does their job. I won't even say everybody does a cookie cutter job because I'm back and forth on Twista sometimes, but he killed it here. Shine did a good job here. Kanye killed it here. It fit perfectly. This is the stuff that I hope, without controversy, that people don't forget that he contributed or how he contributed back then. I hope that doesn't get retracted from the annals of music history, because regardless of where he is now or the choices he's made in the past few years on what he wanted to say publicly and the opinions he wanted to voice, there was not only a great producer who contributed so much, but a great rapper who contributed so much. And this little verse we get, I shouldn't even say little, but this verse we get from him is one of the ones where I say, man, don't forget there was a young Kanye that was killing the game and really rewrote a lot of the way we look at the game. So I'm this track is really cool. I enjoy it a lot. I really do.
Yes, yes, it is. And there we have it, our post Super Bowl halftime look at Confessions, the year it turns 20. I'm so happy we got to do this album. I really am.
Yeah, man. It was fun. It was fun to go back on this one.
Most definitely. And now, after this reevaluation, I am curious what your final grade on the album is after all these years.
This is a big album for him, and not only by number, even after the release, track wise, but just such a quintessential piece in the Usher saga throughout. And it still to this day sings correctly as what I think it's set out to do. There are a few missteps here. There are. We talked about them, but the album never loses the Usher feeling. It never goes away from who he is as an artist for me, and I really enjoyed that. The pacing is spot on. The production value is really well here. Um, Aside from the small stuff, this is a really solid album, and for that I give it a B.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a step higher with B plus because I mean I do think there are some missteps here, but out of 21 songs, the track record is pretty remarkable for how many of these are great.
Yeah.
And nothing sounds bad. I don't think any of it sounds like doo doo or Fisher Price. It's all very top of the line and good to listen to. If it were just the standard edition, it would be a B. But because of the special edition, it elevates for me, and the highs are very high. Um, and I will not take anything away from that. And I'm so glad that we got to hear so many of these songs this year at the Super Bowl. It was one of the best shows I've seen from it. I think it was the best in quite a few years for the halftime show. So hats off to you, Usher, and thank you for giving us such a great discussion today with this
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I had fun with this. Favorite track?
Woo, it's tough on this. I know I say a lot, but there's some ones that are true to me for so many years. If you would have caught me back then, I'm going to give you three here because I'd like to go over the different versions of me throughout this. If you catch me back then, caught up. If you catch me right now after a week or so of critical listening, take your hand. And then off of the non-traditionals, my boo.
I mean, that is very fair. I do have. I mean, with initially I would have said yeah because it's a banger. But overall, I got to go with Confessions Part Two.
Heard that.
That's my shit right there.
Heard
nothing,
that.
nothing else to it, but so much great stuff here. And I'm glad we did it. I beat that into the ground, but
No, you're good. It was a really fun time.
yeah, but we're going to have another fun time next week. I'm so excited for this for our next episode. So, for the first time in over a year on Turntables and Tea, we're going to be having a guest named Jeremiah Confort. He's a colleague of mine, an IT whiz who is also a music producer. Got a lot to say about music and culture. Really, one of the smartest, most interesting people I've had the pleasure of meeting. And he wanted to do this podcast. So he's going to be here next week, and we are going to be discussing Coldplay's A Rush to the Blood of the Head, which Jeremiah is a huge Coldplay fan, and we'll have a lot to say about them. And I think we'll have a lot to say about this album. I haven't heard the whole thing, but it does have a couple of the classic Coldplay tracks that everybody knows. And even their detractors, I think, can admit that a couple of the songs here are genuinely good, even if they want to dump on Chris Martin.
I'm excited to do that one, and I'm excited to have Jeremiah. It's going to be a really cool one. It's another one that I'm like, man, we've come in season 3 now, so we've come through so many different artists, and it's wild that we haven't done a Coldplay. So it's exciting to get this one done.
Yeah, it is. We're checking some off our list this year so far.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot more to come for you, but that's going to be the next one. And we're really excited for you all to hear it. Of course, be sure to subscribe to this wherever you're listening to it so you get notified about that episode and tune in because we're super excited for it. So, yes, but in the meantime, keep your clock set for the next episode all about Coldplay with a special guest. And yeah, until then, just hold on tight. Until then, take care of yourself, and we will see you soon. Yay!